So to give you guys a little bit of behind the scenes look, this is what my set looks like. My lights, everything. I don't know if you wanted to know that, but mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the weirdest of them all? Oh shit, I'm supposed to be doing a review. Alright, so the review for this film was suggested by the user MRJLLJ68. You know who you are. And I just finished watching the movie. You'll have to pardon me, I'm holding my phone for part of this because I'm gonna have a little bit of difficulty pronouncing the names in this film. The Night Comes For Us was released September 22nd, 2018, last year. And I believe it's a relatively small film, relatively small budget. Directed by Timo Tjahjanto. I know I butchered that. And starring Iko Uwais and Joe Taslim. As well as Julie Estelle. She was fantastic in this, actually. I guess she was in The Raid, too. I have not seen the Raid movies yet, and I need to get on that pretty soon. But I've heard that The Raid and The Raid 2 are fantastic. First thing that I noticed about this film was the camera work, the lighting, the cinematography. All those things are competently done. And then, of course, the makeup, the special effects, the action, the choreography, fight scenes, everything is like that is competently done, is competently executed. Now, what stands out in this, because it is an action film, are the fight scenes. The fight scenes are lengthy, the fight scenes take place in sort of chunks, bites throughout the film, and there's about a 50-50 split between dialogue scenes and action scenes. But when action scenes are there, they're riveting, they're bloody, they're intensely bloody and gory. And they had me kind of clenching and grinding my teeth at a couple different places. So I'd say if you're someone who gets queasy or doesn't like the sight of blood, don't watch this. Yeah, I'd say this is definitely not for the faint of heart. So right now I'm going to go through my favorite aspects of this film. The first would be the lighting. The lighting is excellent in this film. I cannot emphasize that enough. Now when you see good lighting as a filmmaker, as a cinematographer, as someone who's in the film industry, you immediately recognize it. You see, oh, well, somebody put some thought into this. And I really like the way that the temperature and the color of the lighting is used in the scenes to enhance the atmosphere of the scenes, especially during some of the fights. The fight scenes are dutifully enhanced by the lighting and the color scheme. I found the shots that were illuminated by blues and pinks and reds and purples and all of that, just the neon ambience, I found those to be so well done. And I feel like those scenes would have been good without that sort of lighting, but they wouldn't have been as good. And you can see the utilization of these kind of lighting techniques in other films like the John Wick series. The light itself can enhance everything going on around it. Just look at the Godfather films, especially part 1 and 2, to make certain characters look more ominous and to add character to every frame. Now, when Marlon Brando is seated in the room, sitting on his chair, the lights are dim, but they're very carefully placed, and they're mostly lit from the top towards the ceiling, facing down, creating this almost spooky, ominous, intimidating. It gives an intimidation factor. But several scenes in this reminded me of the club scene in John Wick, the first one, where he's moving through the crowds, punching and shooting people in the head, and there's just a light show going on around him. He's just a passenger through that club, and you're there with him. And I felt like that was one of the aspects of this film that the creators got correct, that they executed it, bring you along with the action scenes, and you're there, and it's very visceral, and you can feel every punch. Now I'm going to get into some of the negatives on the film. I've said the choreography was great, the fights were visceral, the lighting was excellent, and those are my standouts. But the negatives are that the characters are sort of one-dimensional. Now, this is sort of a petty complaint, you might say, for an action film. But I would say that action films can also have really well-written characters and really good storylines. That would be my argument. I've heard people say, friends of mine say, that they don't want a good story. They're not there for the character development. They're not there for, I want a story or anything. They're not there for that. They're just there to see blood and guts and people get their ass kicked. And for explosions. I get that. Here's the thing, though. You can have both. You can have your cake and eat it, too. Now, in my world, writing and action are not necessarily separate. They're two different devices and mechanisms by which you can achieve a good film. And look at the John Wick films. Okay, they're successful because the choreography is really, really good. But they're also successful because the story and the motivation behind all of the violence makes sense, and it's impactful, and it kind of reaches into your heart, and it grabs you. You understand, you can sympathize with the character of John Wick, specifically in the first one. It seemed kind of weird that John Wick would get all pissed off and kill so many people over a puppy, but it wasn't just the puppy. It wasn't just a dog. It was what the dog represented. And it kind of represented the last remnant, the last piece of his life with his wife that he had left. And they took that and they destroyed it. They burned it. They killed it. That's the good writing part of it, is that you feel the impact of it. You feel why it pisses him off so much, why it eats through his soul. And he had to have his revenge. And so in this film, I feel like the setup was decent, and the first 15 to 20 minutes really gives you an idea of what's going on. Okay, they do it through a lot of visual storytelling. There's actually not a whole lot of exposition in the first hour, but I feel like in some ways they could have done the story better. One of my other complaints for this film is that some of the stunt henchmen seem to be a little bit lacking in their choreography. I know I said earlier that the choreography was good, but there are a couple scenes, just like the John Wick films, in which you can just see in the wide shots that there are a couple of henchmen that are like hanging back for no particular reason. They're just hanging back when it's a 8 or 10 on 1 fight. They're just hanging back, waiting for the other guys to. So, like in real life, everybody would just pile on and they would kick his ass and they would kill him. But I feel like stuff like that just pulls me out of the movie, and it's a minor complaint. But when you're shooting films with wide, beautiful shots like this, that is a risk you take. That's sort of a price you pay for having beautifully shot angles on the fight scene, rather than up close or medium shots that are shaky so that you can't tell what's going on. So it's, in a way, it's just a sacrifice, and it's a small complaint. So I would say definitely check this movie out if you like really violent action movies, like The Raid, very similar. Check it out. If you don't mind some subtitles, you'll wade through it. It is 2 hours long, which is one thing I feel like the runtime could have been trimmed down a bit, but that's just me. If you really enjoy non-stop violence and action and limbs flying everywhere and people getting shot to pieces, like yeah, I'm still here. I mean, if you like that, then check it out. It's on Netflix. I'm going to give this a 7.5. It was pretty good. Leave your comments and suggestions below. I'd like to hear from you guys some more. Give me more suggestions for movie reviews, video essays, And I'll see y'all next time. Leave a like. You can subscribe here. Oh, I'm gonna go wide. There you can see all my crap that I got in the background. Okay. So I can just have a right here over me is where you can like subscribe, and there's probably some other videos around here that you can click. Other videos of mine. If you want to check them out, go ahead. This is kind of an impromptu review. God, I love coffee.